let's go on to our defensive mistakes here. We talked about some mistakes last week, the last 2 weeks, that aren't necessarily true on defense. They were true more on playing the hand type of mistakes. These are going to be mistakes made on defense. And we're going to talk about these here. This is this first one. I bang the drum constantly on this. I see so many people underlead aces when defending against a suit contract. Linda Hughes used to say, or maybe still does, that when you underlead an ace against a suit contract, you get what you deserve when you see the singleton king hit the dummy. That means you're not getting that ace ever. And it's just a terrible lead. It's the number one worst lead in bridge. It's corollary, leading an unsupported ace, unless you're at the 5 level or higher. If the contract is at the 5 level or higher, leading the ace does not promise the king. A lot of times you want to take a look at the dummy or some such thing, and you think you need to get tricks when you're defending a high level contract. And so leading the ace doesn't promise the king when the contract is at the 5 level or higher. But at a common garden variety part score or game contract, leading out an unsupported ace is almost as bad as underleading an ace against a suit contract. Why is that? Well, the opponents have the contract. Generally, that means they have more high card points than you do. And when you lead out an ace, aces are meant to capture kings and queens. When you lead out an ace, are you going to capture kings and queens? Not unless they're singleton. So what you're doing is setting up kings and queens for the opponents when you do that. Save your aces to capture kings and queens. You'll be much happier with your results when you do. And I have some people who tell me, say, well, that's what I was taught. Well, I'm sorry if that's what you were taught incorrectly. There's just no way around it. And your results will improve dramatically when you correct what you were taught. Just fixing these 2 things, if you're in the habit of doing these 2 things, just fixing these 2 things will improve your results right now. Okay, now the next defensive mistake I see a lot is defenders being much too active when there is no reason to be active. Most of the time you want to defend passively. What does it mean to defend actively? It means to do things like underlead kings or queens, leading out unsupported aces, breaking new suits for the declarer, just being very busy doing things that you shouldn't be doing. When you're defending most any common garden variety part score or even game contract, passive is the order of the day unless there is a strong indication that you should be active. How do you know when you should be active? Well, maybe you're defending a no trump contract and the dummy bid and rebid a suit, indicating that there's length and strength in it, particularly if they're at the game level. That means that the defense needs to get their tricks before the declarer can get that suit set up if he needs to, or maybe he doesn't even need to set it up. Maybe it's all set up and ready to run. When the opponents have shown extra values, like maybe they've landed in a game contract, but they tried for slam and couldn't get there, that's a sign you probably need to defend pretty actively. And sometimes you just know from the bidding and looking at your hand that honors are sitting well for the declarer, or that suits are breaking 3-3 for him. And so he's going to get some favorable breaks that way. That's a time when you need to get in and get your tricks as soon as possible. That's known as active defense. It is much more common that you want to be passive. Passive just means sitting back, basically, and making the declarer do his own work. You don't break new suits. You don't underlead honors. Just sit back and wait for the declarer to try to make his bid. Very often, when you do that, you will end up defeating a contract. This is particularly true in the case where one hand is very strong and the other one is weak. Think about a two-club opening opposite a hand that used the second negative. This will be an indication that the declarer is going to have a hard time getting over to the dummy, even to take a finesse. This calls for passive defense. Maybe they have kind of limped into a game contract. Nobody was really strong enough to force the game right away. Maybe they bid 2 or 3 suits and they really couldn't light anywhere, and they finally ended up in 3 no trump simply because they didn't have a fit anyplace else. If they show a balanced balanced hands are always an indication that you need to defend passively. And of course, anytime you are on opening lead against a no trump slam or any grand slam, you never underlead an honor. Very often when declarer has contracted for 6 no trump, he'll have 11 tricks off the top. And if you underlead an honor, you have just presented him with his 12th trick on a silver platter, so to speak. So you never give any free finesses when you're on opening lead versus 6 no trump or any grand slam. And of course, if you have strength in one of declarer's suits, you don't want to lead that suit because you'll just end up finessing yourself. You want to make a much more passive lead. That's why bridge teachers have long told players not to lead a suit bid by one of the opponents versus a no trump contract, particularly one bid by the declarer, because that opening lead is going right into the strength of that hand. So if they have bid that suit, find another one to lead. It may not be your first choice, but try not to help the declarer. That will really, if you just try to remember not to help the declarer, you'll be happy with your results. And then, of course, when you are defending passively, you just return suits that the declarer has already played. He has already broken. He may be clever and force you into breaking a new suit sometimes. And that's why it's often wise to hold on to some of your extraneous small cards in suits that the declarer has already played. It gives you a safe exit. And very often the key to success when you're defending is just having a safe exit card. So you never know when you're going to need a small card like that. So remember that next time you're discarding. Now, I still see lots of people who are not covering an honor with an honor because they're being stingy. They still think they're going to get a trick with it. The whole idea behind covering an honor with an honor is to promote something. So that's either in your hand or in your partner's hand, you hope. For instance, if the declarer leads an honor off the dummy and you have a higher honor, you should play it, provided there is no other honor in the dummy. There are a couple of exceptions, of course, to covering an honor with an honor. The first one is when there's nothing to promote, when you can see all the immediately lower cards in the dummy, then don't waste your honor. Don't make life easy for the declarer. That's one time when you don't cover because you don't have a card to promote and neither does your partner because you can see them in the dummy. The other time is when there are touching honors in the dummy and the lead comes off with one of those honors. You wait and cover the last one. You wait and cover the last one, not the first one. So this is an important mistake. Know when to cover an honor with an honor. Here's an example. We're playing East opens a heart, South overcalls a spade, and North jumps directly to 4 spades. Right away, East should know that his partner is broke, right? he has an opening hand and the opponents are in game, you can account for virtually all 40 points in the deck right there. And of course, West is a good partner. He has a doubleton jack in hearts, and so he leads the jack of hearts. The play begins with East taking first the queen when you're playing third hand, trying to take the trick. And of course, East has no way of knowing if that's a doubleton or a singleton. It looks like a doubleton, but he can't be sure, and it costs him nothing to overtake that jack because he has the 10 and the 9. So he'll overtake with the queen, he'll play the ace, and then he'll play the king of hearts. Well, at this point, West has to discard, but the opponents are booked. East has now taken 3 heart tricks, and he needs to return something. He doesn't want to underlead his king of diamonds. I mean, all you have to do is look at the dummy to know that's a bad idea, right? Mm-hmm. And you look at the club suit in the dummy, and underleading the queen of clubs looks equally bad. So that pretty much just leaves a trump here. So he gets out with a trump. Declarer draws 2 rounds, ending in the dummy, and then he leaves the club jack off the dummy. Should East cover it? He can't see the 10. Does he think his partner might have the ace? Is there any possibility that West could have the ace? We already decided that, didn't we? We decided that West is broke. West is broke. He has no high honor cards. So this is a case where Mr. East has to say, well, somebody has to have the 10 of clubs. It might as well be my partner, and I hope he has it. So he needs to cover the jack with the queen, forcing the ace from Declarer's hand. He has a trick with the jack of clubs, but now we're looking at 4, 3, 3, 3 clubs around the table. So Declarer got only 2 club tricks here. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? And if you're counting, you will realize he followed the 3 rounds of hearts. He has to have 3 clubs, and he had at least 5 spades. Well, we know he had exactly 5 spades because the dummy had 4. Or maybe he had, no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. He had 6 spades because he drew only 2 rounds of trumps. He had 6 spades, 3 hearts, and 3 clubs. He has a singleton diamond. If he tries to get rid of that club loser by taking the diamond finesse, he loses because the finesse doesn't work. But he can also lead his singleton diamond to the ace and then return the queen. And of course, you better cover it. But then he has to ruff, and he still doesn't have a parking place for that 3rd club. By covering the jack of clubs with the queen, West's lowly 10 of clubs is promoted into the setting trick. This is why it's so important to cover an honor with an honor, particularly when you can't see the honor that's below it. Something like the jack, you can't see the 10. Maybe Declarer has it. Well, if Declarer has the 10, it doesn't cost you anything to cover because you're never getting that queen anyway. The only way that you can defeat this contract is by covering the jack of clubs with the queen. That means that your partner's 10 will set up. It's amazing how well that works when you just think about it. So try not to be too stingy with your honors. It only hurts for a little while, right? Here's another instance of the same sort of thing. Let's say your partner's on opening lead. and you didn't bid. He's leading his best suit, and he leads a small card, something like the 7. What does that tell us? If he leads small, it means he doesn't have an honor sequence, doesn't it? If he had an honor sequence, he'd lead the top of the sequence. Particularly when you hold the Queen 9-2, you're pretty sure he can't have a 3-card sequence. So partner leads the 7. Declarer calls for a low card from the dummy. There are no honors in the dummy. And you'll be surprised how many people want to play the 9. Saying, well, my partner probably has the Jack and the 10. You should not make that assumption. When there are no honors in the dummy and your partner has led a low card, you play the highest card you have. Do not play the 9. Play the Queen. When there is no honor in the dummy, there are no exceptions. Third hand plays the highest card he has. If it turns out that there are only higher cards in the dummy than what you have, and you can't beat whatever card the dummy has played, then you give your partner a count signal. High from an even number, high-low from an even number, or low-high from an odd number. That will help him figure out how the suit lies around the table. And then, like Susie was talking earlier, failing to lead the suit your partner bid. The number 1 rule in bridge, guys, is keep your partner happy. It's not you have to follow suit. It's not you have to bid if you have 12 points. It's not any of that stuff. The number 1 rule is keep your partner happy. How do you follow rule number 1? You lead the suit he bid, and you return his opening lead. The only excuses you have for not doing either one of those 2 are either that you're avoiding his suit or you died at the table. That's it. Because if you don't, and as Susie says, it turns out that by leading partner's suit, you'd have defeated the contract, you're going to be explaining yourself for a very long time. And you have no good explanation. So unless you like feeling like a schmuck, just lead the suit your partner bid. This is just part of the game. You know, here's an example. I've got a hand here for Mr. West. Mr. West over here has a very good candidate for an opening lead, doesn't he? Look at that club suit. That's a pretty chunky club suit. But partner bid hearts. If partner hadn't bid hearts, West would be leading the king of clubs, hands down. There's nothing else. But partner has said, hey, I've got a good heart suit over here, partner, and I have at least 5 of them, and I had the values to bid. What is the one overriding reason here that West should lead a heart rather than a club? And it's not because it's the suit that his partner bid. If he's trying to choose, that club suit looks pretty promising, doesn't it? Well, if he's playing against a half-savvy declarer, that declarer is going to hold up until he's pretty sure that East has no more clubs. Do you see any outside entries in the West hand there? I don't. That point right there should convince West that he is much better off leading a heart than a club, simply because his partner had the values not only to overcall, but to overcall at the 2 level. That means he has not only a decent suit, but he has values in his hand. Translate values to mean entries. So in this case, West doesn't even have to be half smart to know to lead a heart, right? He just needs to lead a heart because the declarer will hold up that ace as long as he can, but he cannot make the bid without developing the spade suit in the dummy. East is going to win that spade king and take the rest of his hearts. He's going to end up taking the spade king and 5 heart tricks for a 2-trick set. Whereas if West leads the clubs, he can take 2 or 3 clubs, but when East gets in with the king of spades, the heart suit is not set up. So we're just out of luck here. The hearts have to be led at trick 1 if we want to have them set up when East wins the king of spades. North and South have the values to be in 3-no trump. South only has 11 points, but that North hand has a nice 5-card spade suit. They have a nice diamond fit, and the diamonds even break 3-3. So without the heart lead, Declarer will make 10 tricks. But if he leads a heart, he goes down 2. That's quite a difference, I think. And certainly worth leading the suit that your partner bid. Now here's a corollary. Failing to return partner's opening lead. Is it ever right to switch from the suit that your partner led? Of course it is. After all, opening leads are often just a crapshoot, aren't they? Your partner has picked something. He says, well, I have a sort of a reasonable suit here. Nobody bid it. Let's try this. So here's an example. 1-no trump, 3-no trump. That screams for a major suit lead. West says, well, my spades are a lot better than my hearts. So he leads the 7 of spades. And the declarer ducks in the dummy. East plays his queen and says, okay, let's see. What does this mean? He sees some weakness in the club suit when he looks at the dummy. Should I return a spade, my partner's opening lead here, or look at my clubs? Look at my clubs. I have Queen, Jack, 10, 5th of clubs. What should I do? Well, first off, he should have, before the opening lead even hit the table, he should have said to himself, okay, the opponents are in a game contract, and I have 5 high card points. That means that my partner should have 9 or 10 points over there from something. So East has already played the outside entry that he has when he played the Queen of Spades. He can lead the Queen of Clubs. Do you think that his partner has length in clubs? Generally, when the auction goes 1-no trump, 3-no trump, that means that nobody looked for a major 4-4 or 5-3 major suit fit. That generally means that the opponents have the minors locked up. And East should be sitting there thinking, oh, gee, even if I do get my clubs set up, I don't have an outside entry now that my Queen of Spades is gone. So what good is it going to do me to set these up? Because it'll take 2 leads, evidently, unless my partner has a high honor in clubs. It will take me 2 leads to get these set up. So it's not looking too good. Partner either has the spade king or the spade jack, doesn't he? He has an honor. He has an honor. And you can see the ace and the queen, so you know that, I mean, it's possible that he could have both, but if he had king, jack, 10, he'd have led the jack. Or if he'd had jack, 10, 8, he'd have led the jack. So if East remembers to use the rule of 11, and if he sits and thinks, he says, there's a really good chance my partner has a 5-card spade suit headed by the king. And since he's got 9-ish high card points, he should have an outside entry somewhere. I don't have an outside entry. I know he has spades. So even though I see the ace in the dummy, it seems right to return a spade here. He should play the 9 of spades back. The declarer will be forced to play the jack. Partner will play the king, and declarer may or may not play the ace at this point. He doesn't know whether he started with queen nine or queen nine small, simply because you return current count. And East had currently a doubleton, so he returns the top card of the doubleton. But regardless of what he does, if West's king holds the trick, he can clear the suit by leading a small one and taking the ace out. And as you can see, the diamond finesse fails, and he can cash more spade tricks to defeat the contract. Whereas if East switches to the queen of clubs, declarer's going to make the bid because the spades won't be set up when West wins the king of diamonds. This is the way you need to think about switches. Yes, there's weakness in the dummy in clubs, and yes, I have good cards in clubs, but I don't have any entries. The key to defeating a no-trump contract is to lead the suit that's the long suit in the hand with entries. Or if there are limited entries in that hand, keep the entries there until the suit is set up. Partner has to be the one taking the tricks until the long suit is set up. So in this case, the winning play is the nine of spades. But let's say East had king, queen, jack, 10 of clubs, and his partner didn't have the king of diamonds. In that case, a spade switch, or a club switch, might clearly have been better. Because it takes only one lead to set up the suit, or until we can force the ace. I need to force out only one high card. So these are the things that you need to think about when you're trying to decide whether to return your partner's suit or not. Most generally, it will be the right thing to do. But every now and again, you can figure from the bidding and the opening lead and the play to the first trick that there is no future in that suit, and you need to make a change. In this case, though, a change is not indicated, despite the fact that East has a nice club suit. I mean, his partner doesn't have to have the king of diamonds. He could have the ace of clubs, and declarer could have the king. And if he puts the queen of clubs on the table, then we can end up taking a bunch of club tricks. The problem is, though, that the declarer can hold up until West doesn't have any clubs left. And so it still doesn't help because East doesn't have an entry. Entries are all important in this game, especially either when you're playing a hand and you need to get to the dummy, or when you're defending and you need to keep good communication with your partner's hand. Entries are everything. Another error I see quite a bit is leading fourth best from a broken sequence. Instead of leading the top of the broken sequence, people fail to recognize that the broken sequence is a sequence and they should lead the top.
Susan.
Yes.
Joanne Flowers asked, what is the rule of 11?
The rule of 11 just simply says that when your partner leads a spot card and it's a fourth best lead, you subtract the number of pips on that card. In other words, if it's a 7, you subtract 7 from 11, and that says there are 4 cards higher than that suit in the dummy, opening leader's partner's hand, and the declarer's hand. Tells you how many cards higher than that opening lead there are in the other 3 hands. Very often it can help you place the cards exactly. It's one of the tools that defenders should use routinely when the opening lead looks like a fourth best.
Okay, Cindy Crittenden also asked, is it wrong to consider leading the 8 instead of the 7 on that previous slide?
Third best instead of fourth? Well, unless you and your partner played third, fifth leads so that you use the rule of 10 and 12 for calculating how many outstanding cards there are. Most people lead the fourth best. If you want to use the rule of 11 to help you figure out how the suit lies around the table, you got to lead fourth best. If you want to lead third best, then you and your partner, you either lead third or fifth best. You have to use the rule of 10 and 12. So your choice between you and your partner. Most people use fourth best lead. So, okay. Here we are. 1 no trump, 3 no trump by North and South, and West is on lead. Look at this diamond suit. This is a situation I saw not very long ago. Opening leader led the 8 of diamonds from this holding. Well, declarer very smartly put the jack on because he knows that if it's just a 2-card sequence, maybe West underled the king queen. It's been known to happen. He puts the jack on the trick and it holds. He gets 2 tricks from diamonds. Now all he has to do is drive out the ace of clubs and he takes 10 or 11 tricks here, right off the top. Watch what happens if he leads the king instead. Declarer gets only 1 trick from diamonds, and it makes a huge difference. We keep leading diamonds. It takes only 2 to drive out the ace. And now when West gets in with the ace of clubs, he takes the remaining diamond tricks. He gets 4 diamonds and the ace of clubs and sets the contract, all because he led the correct card from that holding. When you have a 3-card perfect sequence or broken sequence and you're leading against no trump, lead the top card in that sequence, not your 4th best. Because you have so many high cards in your hand here, that means declarer often wins a trick that he's not entitled to win when you lead like that. From king, queen, 10, consider that to be the same as king, queen, jack. You lead from king, queen, 10 the same way you do from king, queen, jack. Especially once he sees the jack doubleton on the board, he knows it's completely safe to lead the queen. And of course, his partner has no touching honor. He can see the jack too, so he knows his partner has a king, queen, 10, but he does not have the ace. The 9 is not an honor. He has a touching card, but it's not an honor. So he will play the 2, saying, I have 3, partner, over here, 3 small, and I don't have the ace. I'm sure you're not surprised by that. He can look at this. We have 10 points in the West hand and none at all in the East hand over here. So if this contract is to be defeated, it's up to West. And he can do it if he just leads the right card. The 8 is not the right card. Yes, it's the 4th best, but there is a 3-card broken sequence here. The first 2 cards are touching. There's a skip, and then we have the next card. That's the definition of a broken sequence. Lead from a sequence like that the same as you would a 3-card perfect sequence. And here's a big one. Here's a big one. Discarding errors. I've got a whole set of slides on discarding on defense, and it would probably be a good idea for us to repeat that again. It's been a while since I've done it. But I don't know about you, but sometimes I think discarding when the declarer is running a long suit is one of the hardest parts of this game. It's so easy to lose track because your partner's discarding too, and sometimes declarer is discarding, trying to keep track and count. It's really easy to get confused and keep the wrong thing. But there are a couple of little tricks that you can use that should make it easier. North leads the club king here against 3 no trump, and the declarer wins the 3rd round. And then he says, I have a couple of opportunities here. There's a possibility the heart suit will break 3-3, and I might get an extra trick. I'm probably not going to get anything extra from the diamonds, but I don't know. It's just, what am I going to do here? Well, when you're in doubt, sometimes it's a good idea to make the defenders break a new suit for you. Remember when I was talking about active and passive defense, I said, don't break one. Sometimes the declarer can force you to do it. And that's exactly what this declarer does here. He takes the ace and then returns his last one. He knows it's not good, but he knows that he can force North to lead. So, at this point, South has to do some serious thinking. His partner has shown up with a king, queen, and jack of clubs. He's got 6 points just in clubs. South has 6 points also. That's 12. And they're in a game contract. So North can't possibly have an ace, can he? If he has an ace, then East and West have overbid seriously. If your opponents are competent bidders, you can pretty much count on this number rule, particularly in a no-trump contract, to give you good guidance. South should be figuring out that his partner cannot have an ace. He doesn't see any aces on the dummy, and there are none in his hand. Guess where they are? All of the aces have to be in that West hand. He didn't peek. He has just figured this out by figuring out how many points his partner has. His partner has shown up with 6 points in clubs. South has 6 points. It's possible that North could have a stray queen or a couple of jacks somewhere, but he certainly doesn't have an ace. So that means that he has all 4 aces, but he has no 4-card major. Remember the bidding? East bid 2 clubs, West bid 2 diamonds, denying a 4-card major suit. So when it comes down to discarding on this last club, what is Mr. South going to do? He has a problem, doesn't he? He would like to keep that jack of hearts guarded. He knows that West doesn't have a 4-card spade suit. That 8 of spades is higher than the 3 or the 5 in the dummy. So if that suit's not breaking, that 8 could very well control the 4th round of that suit. So it seems pretty important for him to keep the 8 of spades as well. But he has only the king and queen of diamonds left. Wow. He knows that the declarer has ace of diamonds. What's he going to do? I have faced lots of decisions like this, and I'm sure you have too. And I have usually ended up discarding a small spade here would be what I would do. But that's absolutely wrong. The right discard here is one of the diamond honors, because one of the number 1 rules in discarding on defense is to keep parity with the dummy. There are 4 cards in each major suit here in the dummy, and South has a card that's higher than the 4th card in both of those suits. He absolutely has to guard those major suits. So he pitches a diamond honor. Does that take nerve? You bet it does. You just take a deep breath and do it. And you hope that your partner has the jack of diamonds. Remember, we figured out it's possible he could have a stray jack or 2. He could have the jack of diamonds. If declarer has it, oh well. Because if I discard a heart, then declarer is going to get a trick with the 4th heart in the dummy. If I discard a spade, then declarer is going to get a trick with a long spade in the dummy. So it costs me nothing to throw the queen of diamonds and hope my partner has the jack. I know he can't guard a major suit. My partner had length in clubs. He does not have length in the majors. I can see where the length in the majors has to be. Wes doesn't have it. He denied it when he bid 2 diamonds. And of course, then when declarer plays the ace of diamonds, it drops your king, but your partner, bless his heart, has the jack 9 sitting over the 10. So declarer can't make any extra tricks in diamonds. He has to fall back on having that heart suit break or having the spade, high cards in spades drop. Well, guess what? If South sits there and thinks long enough and remembers the bidding, thinks about how many points his partner has shown up with, looks at what he has, he'll come to the right decision here. Throwing the king or queen of diamonds, either one. Generally, you would throw the king, showing the queen, will result in Wes not making the bid. Any other discard, and he will make it. He will make it. If you throw a heart, he'll take a trick with a long heart. If you throw a spade, he'll take a trick with a long spade. You'll get your one and only diamond trick, but that's it. Declarer will make his bid. You'll get 3 clubs and a diamond, and that will be all. So discarding on defense, one of the principal rules is keep parity with the dummy. If you have 4 cards in a suit or same lengths that the dummy has in a suit that looks pretty important, keep those cards. Likewise, if as a result of a statement inquiry, the declarer shows a 4-card major suit, but it doesn't match with the dummy's 4-card major suit, and he shows it, and you have 4 cards in that suit, keep those 4 cards in that suit. You also want to keep parity with the declarer when you're discarding. Another thing that you want to do is keep a card in your partner's suit. Now, in this case, partner suit has been exhausted, but that doesn't often happen that way. A lot of times, declarer will win the first or second round, and you need to be sure to keep 1 card in your partner's suit. But if you have 2 or 3 of them, you can discard a couple of them. You just need to keep 1 if that's all that you need to get to partner's hand. This is one of the toughest subjects there is. But it's also one of the most common errors on defense, simply because it's so hard. It takes practice to learn to think about hands like this. I don't know about the rest of you, but I didn't start out my bridge career being able to think about opening leads and hands and how many points my partner has and yeah. This is a skill that it takes time to develop, but it is one that is worth learning. I think you can see why. It will guide you to the right decisions if you give yourself a chance to remember it and to think about it. So, last slide coming up. Last 2 mistakes are giving the declarer a ruff and a sluff. There are occasions when that's the correct thing to do, but it generally takes somebody with a modicum of experience to know when that is. Most of the time, for most players, you don't want to give the declarer a ruff and a sluff, and that simply means that you let him trump in one hand and discard a loser in the other. Now, is it a good idea to make the declarer trump in his hand, the long trump hand? Absolutely it is. It's called the forcing defense, and it can weaken the declarer's trump holding. That's never a bad thing for the defense. But you don't want to lead a suit when you know that both the dummy and declarer are void in that suit, because now he can trump in the short trump hand and discard a loser from his hand. This is one thing most everybody has heard. Oh, you gave him a ruff and a sluff. That is often not desirable. Sometimes you can't help it. You have no options. And as I said, once in a while, it's the right thing to do. For instance, if you're trying to execute a trump promotion or an uppercut, sometimes that's the right thing to do. But most of the time, all this does is add to declarer's trick total. So be really careful. Try to remember if the declarer has trumped in a suit, so that when you see that the dummy also is out of cards in that suit, that you don't lead it again. Now, obviously, against no trump, this means that your cards are good. This pertains to suit contracts only, obviously, because I'm talking about a Ruff and a Sluff. Similarly, though, don't be afraid to lead a trump. Sometimes leading a trump is absolutely the right thing to do, and it's the classic passive lead. If you finesse your partner's trump honor, that isn't anything that the declarer couldn't have done himself. And you avoid finessing yourself. The one thing that declarer cannot do is finesse the opening leader unless the dummy has high cards in the suit. So the classic passive lead is a trump. It is often absolutely the right thing to do. And it's something you should consider when leading a side suit. Won't do anything but finesse your honors. In that case, leading a trump is your best option, because defenders are not in business to do declarer's work for him. We got to make declarer do his own work. And finally, the last one I put in here is the importance of learning to use defensive signals. You know, the defense doesn't have very many ways of communicating. The declarer has a big advantage because he can see all of his side's assets. The defenders have to communicate through their carding and remembering the bidding. And so your best source of information in this instance is your partner and the clues he gives you. It can be really hard to learn to use signals when you're used to just playing the lowest card in the suit. You have to stop and think about which card you play, because that card is sending a message to your partner. If your partner's on opening lead, you're giving him an attitude message saying, I like or I don't like your opening lead. If it's in the middle of the hand and declarer is leading a suit, trying to set up a long suit on the dummy, and maybe your partner has the ace of that suit, he needs to know how long to hold it up. He doesn't want to give declarer any extra tricks by holding up too long, but he doesn't want to leave him with a card that would serve as a link to that long suit in the dummy. So in this case, count signals become important to let partner know how many you have, so he can figure out how many declarer has and know how many times he needs to hold up that ace or that control. It takes effort not only to learn to use these signals, but to remember to look for the signals that your partner is giving you. It is really easy to say, what was that card partner played? Oh no, I can't remember if he played high or low. Did he like my lead or not? It's hard. It is. It means changing your habits and thinking about new things. And it's not like we don't have 1,000 other things to think about on a hand of bridge, do we? You know, is that 8 the master card in the suit now? It's gone around twice. Is that 8 high? Or did somebody not play the 9? Have I lost that? Have I pulled all the trumps? Who bid what? I mean, we have a lot to remember. And so when you start either learning to count down a hand or learning to watch for signals and use these things, sometimes your results get worse. Don't be hard on yourself. That is to be expected. Anytime you grow in situations like this, there are going to be some growing pains. And sometimes your game suffers a little bit when you're learning to be a better player. Don't beat yourself up about it. Don't beat your partner up about it because he missed a signal. All partners do that from time to time, and next week it'll be your turn to do that. So my point is that it's worth the effort to learn to use and recognize signals. It really, really is. So try not to take the attitude of, oh, well, my partner will never see them anyway, or I play with a whole bunch of different partners. Well, play standard signals then. play standard signals, and you can play with virtually anybody if you do that. So that's what I have for this morning. If anybody has any questions, I'll be around for a little while, but I'm running the game this morning. Don is in Tulsa directing, and Rick is over there playing. So you're stuck with me to run the game this morning. So I'll be here for a little while, but after a bit, I'll have to jump over to BBO and get that game started. So thanks for coming, everybody.
Susan.
Yes.
Susie Graves has a question or statement. In Easy Bridge book, one chapter says always lead a trump in a part score contract. How do you feel about that?
Well, he's often right, particularly when you're thinking about Jacoby transfer auctions. In this case, it's the declarer's hand that is the short trump hand, and it's not Ruff's in the dummy that you're trying to cut down on. It's Ruff's in the declarer's hand. So that's not a bad idea at all. But if your partner has bid something, leave your partner suit.
Hi, this is Susan. Thanks for watching this video today. Most of these videos come from our free bridge lessons that we present on Zoom every Saturday morning at 9 a.m. Central Time. If you'd like to join us for those lessons, you can email us at the address shown below and we'll send you the link. If you can't attend the lessons, then feel free to subscribe to our channel and you'll be notified when there is a new one added. Again, thanks for stopping by and we hope to see you soon.